You had just entered into a courtroom and the judge just looks like anybody else that you might have seen on the street. But you knew what his position and his role was. You knew that he couldn't be fooled. This guy doesn't seem proud or arrogant or anything like that. In fact, he seems very humble, and yet you know that he has complete control over your life. It was only after I started to gather all of these attributes of the person that I was looking at that I made the connection and realized who he was. And I realized I was looking at Jesus. And I realized that Jesus was looking at me. And there was disappointment in his eyes. There was sadness in his eyes. He just sat there looking at me, and he lifted up his hand, and above his hand I saw the world. And it wasn't a model of the world. I knew as I saw it that it was the actual world. It was so three-dimensional, and it was spinning slowly over his hand. But he never looked at it, he kept looking at me. And without saying any words with his mouth, I could hear what he was thinking as the world turned to dust, and it blew away before a speck of the dust could hit his hand. And I saw these tiny little souls, tiny little souls, just a few fall into his hand. And he started to close his hand around them, and he said, "I'm taking what's mine, and this will all be over." I was so terrified in that moment because I knew that he was saying, "I'm not playing any more games with you. You know better by now. You know that this world is dust, and that the only reason it exists is for the harvest of souls that I'm going to take out of it." Do you know it was love for God to say those things to me? It was love for him to show me that. It was love for him to make me feel grieved for a moment so that I could snap out of it and realize that I could not play with that fire anymore. You see, there's grace for us when we're authentically struggling with something. There's grace and patience when we stumble because of ignorance, but there comes a time when we do know better. There comes a time when we've seen too much. And when we've crossed a certain threshold of maturity or healing or revelation, because revelation in God is healing, there's certain things that we can't afford to entertain any longer.